Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics. So, Tommy Robinson's on trial again. Yes, I know. Ain't you got any news today, Phil? Yeah, this one's a bit different. Instead of being in court for abusing a refugee child or contempt of court for not desisting from said abuse of a child, he is on trial in connection with suspicious behaviour, which included him transporting £13,000 in used notes across international borders on counter-terrorism charges. Always a little bit dodgy. But of course, there could be innocent explanations. But then, if his reason was innocent, I've got a question. Why isn't his top lawyer simply explaining this perfectly innocent reason? Instead of which, Robinson's very expensive legal defence seems to be, my client is too posh to be a terrorist. All right, then. I'm not a lawyer myself, but I'm not sure that's the most robust defence ever to grace our courts. But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So, first thing to note here is that Tommy Robinson appears to have a new sugar daddy. Now, we know that Elon Musk has been supporting him on Twitter, but he's also paying his legal expenses now, according to Robinson anyway. I guess this means Robinson no longer has to tap his supporters for funds for his legal defences, which always end up costing way less than the money raised, with never an answer as to what happens to the excess funds. But the main cause of suspicious behaviour, which led to counter-terrorism police taking an interest in Robinson yet again, was that he'd arrived at the Channel Tunnel on his way to another fan-funded Spanish holiday with £13,000 in cash in a small bag. Now, the carrying around of large amounts of cash is always going to be considered suspicious, no matter who is carrying it. These days especially, when almost all transactions are digital, especially suspicious. Sometimes people pay tradesmen with cash. Now, if it's a small amount, someone's washed windows or something. Although even then, my last, window washer, we paid by direct debit. But nonetheless, you might do that. It's a small amount, right? But if you're paying a large amount to a tradesperson, they've done some work or something, and they want it in cash, that's usually a sign that they're keeping the money off the books, probably to diddle the Treasury out of VAT or maybe other taxes. So illegal, right? Tax evasion. Some people may do it to procure services without a digital money trail linking them with said service. That might suggest you're procuring illicit services. There are very few reasons for someone to have large amounts of cash on them other than to avoid the tracking of the use of that money by the authorities. Now, according to a report in The Guardian, which I accept will be missing the odd detail, the suggestion is that the money was supposed to be from a collection to offset the expenses from his recent rally. Now, that would be plausibly an innocent explanation. We know he always has his begging bowl out. So, of course, he's going to try and fleece his supporters in person as well as online. Those Spanish holidays don't pay for themselves, right? So, sure, if the suggestion is that they were raising a load of cash on the day and they used it somehow to pay people at the rally, and there was some left over, it makes sense he would take the rest away. But if this is what he's saying, it still raises a couple of questions. First, why was he paying people working to support the rally in cash? Payments in cash are usually a sign of tax evasion. Secondly, why was he taking the cash abroad? Okay, he wouldn't have been able to pay it into a bank at the time. The rally was on a Saturday, so it would have finished on a Saturday evening. Sunday, the banks aren't open. And there's no hole in the wall going to take 13 grand, not even his millionaire's bank, right? But why not take it somewhere secure before he pissed off on holiday? How is it more secure to take it to Benidorm? Also, one of the things which attracted the police's attention was that Robinson's booking was last minute. So if it's okay, so he's going to go on this rally, he was going to raise some money, he didn't know how much money he'd be raising, he'd intended to use the money raised to pay people at the thing, which is dodgy in itself. But he'd already planned this trip to Benidorm, right? So he wasn't going to have time to go to the bank. He says, go a load of money, Tommy, load of money extra. Oh, no, I have to take it to Benidorm, right? So if he'd planned this trip well in advance, hence why he couldn't take the money to the bank first, why was the booking last minute? You can certainly see a lot of red flags here, no matter whether Robinson was previously known for dodgy financial behaviour or not, which he is, remember. Remember, HMRC are chasing him. But also, remember, innocent till proven guilty in this country, Robinson doesn't have to prove that his purpose for carrying the money across international borders is innocent. He just has to offer up a plausible explanation. It's for the prosecution to prove he's guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Remember, if you're acquitted in court, it doesn't mean you're innocent. It just means there wasn't enough proof that you were guilty. So if he is innocent and the cash wasn't part of money laundering, tax evasion, or for procuring illicit services, why not just say so? You know, this being the case, why did his defence counsel do this when cross-examining the police officer involved? He asked, quote, "Do terrorists drive high-value, high-visibility vehicles?" To which the officer replied, presumably with a confused look on his face, because he thought he was dealing with a professional here, "They can drive any type of vehicle." And even we know that. Don't forget the attack in America not that long ago by someone using a Cybertruck. That is definitely high value and high visibility. The reason this came up is because Robinson drove in with a Bentley, not even his own. And just to be clear, Robinson will not have had a mug defending him. This isn't some rubbish lawyer, right? He'll have a top barrister. They're being paid for, allegedly, by the richest man in the world. There will be no skimping on defence costs here. Why would they attempt a defence of "my client is too posh to be a terrorist" if Robinson had done nothing wrong? Also, Elon Musk has literally tried to stoke violence in the UK for political purposes, which is the definition of terrorism. He told Robinson supporters in London to act violently. His exact words were, "Whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you." Well, using violence as a tool for political change is the textbook definition of terrorism. There are others, but that is the most widely understood one. So, the richest man in the world is basically a terrorist, and I'm sure he drives posh cars in highly visible ways. Absolutely baffling that a top defence barrister for terror-related offences, remember, if you can afford top defence barristers, you get one who's an expert in the specific charges that are laid against you, right? So this must be, I don't know anything about the barrister, by the way, but this must be a barrister who is an expert in defending against these things. Why would they seriously ask such a question if they had a strong case for their client? He then tried to suggest the police were discriminating against Robinson. Is it because I is white? No, mates, because carried around 13 grand in used notes across international borders is suspicious as hell. Naturally, when stopped by the police at the time, Robinson refused to hand his phone over, or when he had no option, give them the pin, saying they looked like C units, so he wasn't going to. He later claimed because journalism, because of course he did. Though, and maybe someone can help me here. Genuine question. I've never understood this issue of giving the pin to the police. Phone pins are just 4 digits. That's like 10,000 possible combination. All right, that's going to take you the best part of 2 days to go over them all. Sure, if you have to go over all of them, if it's the very last combination you try. But if you suspect serious offences, then surely that's worth it. Applaud 2 days, right? Also, you're unlikely to have to go over all the combinations anyway. You'd have to be very unlucky for it to take you a full 2 days. If you work on the assumption that most pins aren't going to be 0000 or 9999. I mean, if I was doing it, I wouldn't start at 0 and go through to 9999. I'd actually start somewhere in the middle and go first one way and then the other. Yeah, but that's a little aside. Something that just personally baffles me whenever it comes up. But I just can't get over the fact that if Robinson had some plausible reason to be taking thousands of pounds in cash to Spain, that his expensive as shit defence lawyer would need to suggest that he can't be guilty because he's too posh. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.